Hi boys and girls, hope that you're doing well. Miss you guys at school. This is going to be a little math lesson. If you've seen some of the other videos and if you have heard from your parents, you'll know that these are all going to be available on Monday. If you want to do them all on Monday, you could do that. You could space it out throughout the week and just do a little every single day. It's really up to you, the way that you'd like to complete it. So this assignment that we're going to do today is going to be from our math textbook. So this would be the time to go grab that if you don't have it with you right now. And you also need some paper to complete it as well. So get a little notebook or some lined paper and then your math textbook. We are going to do some review lessons today. And actually this whole week is going to be review. We're going to work through some perpendicular and parallel lines starting on page 279. So this lesson we have completed in class before. You've completed some workbook pages, but since this is the first week of true virtual learning using Google Classroom, it's going to be more review. So perpendicular lines and parallel lines, we're going to be working through the pages from your textbook, and when it is time for the Let's Practice sections, in this case that's page 284, you'll be completing the work on your notebook. Remember that these textbooks, even though during this situation you are taking them home, these are not to be written in, so you'll just answer any of the questions from the Let's Practice section on your lined paper. So looking at page 279, it's all about perpendicular lines. Okay, so perpendicular line segments are line segments that meet at right angles, and we did discuss that a right angle is technically 90 degrees. Corners of different things are generally at a right angle. We used pieces of paper, the corner of it, to check if it's a right angle. Technically, it is 1/4 of a circle, which is 360 degrees all around. So 90 degrees is 1/4 of that. So it would be a perfect 1/4 of a circle. This is not perfectly drawn, but if you have a perfect circle cut in half and then cut in half again, that would be your right angle. So around me, I know there's some artwork up here that would have some right angles in them, the straight corners of something. In this book, the corners would be right angles as well, and the two lines that come together we call perpendicular. Okay. If you've got a little whiteboard of your own, you can also write your information down that way. So perpendicular lines are the two lines that meet at a right angle. We show that it's a right angle by having a little box in the corner, unlike other angles, which are just a little arc, like half of a circle. So these are perpendicular lines. Where they meet is what's called a right angle. However, the lines themselves right here are perpendicular. You'll see in your book, page 279, showing what a right angle would look like on graph paper. And then this is not a right angle. Since it's smaller than a right angle, what do we call it? An acute angle. Acute. So larger than a right angle is what? Obtuse. Is larger than a right angle, or it would be better to show it maybe that way. Okay, so this section right here would be your obtuse angle. So in your book on page 280 is where I'm looking now. We have line segments, A, B. Remember that, let's take a moment also to review the difference between a line segment and a line. Show me with your arms what a line is. Now you can't see my hands, but should be flat out, showing that it goes on and on forever. And then a line segment is just part of a line. So you should have your fist to show that it is only part of that line. So here we've got line segment AB and line segment CD that are perpendicular to each other, meaning they not only cross, but they cross at a right angle. Now, here's a question, is line CD perpendicular to line EF? Now, it's helpful that they don't even have the box so you can clearly see that it's not a right angle, but also you'd notice that some angles are acute, they're smaller than others, and then the ones on top and bottom are larger than others, those are obtuse. Okay, so, lost the cap. How can you check whether the lines are perpendicular? It suggests using folded paper. Doesn't even have to be folded though. It could just be the corner of a piece of paper to check to see if it's a right angle. We've done that in class quite a bit. Whether it is huge on our big whiteboard or the corner of one of these things on my wall, or very small, this can show you, is it a right angle or not? It also suggests a ruler. A ruler should be at a right angle, even though some of you might have rulers that are kind of rounded edges, so those would not work very well. Okay, for guided practice, I'd like you to try drawing these lines. You may not have graph paper at home, but do your best to draw these lines, and use a paper like this or something that you know is a right angle to check whether they are right angles in your book. Okay? And if you're doing it along with me, you'll see that this will line up perfectly and the other side will as well. So this one is a right angle. This one, hard to get it in focus completely for you all, but this one is not going to line up. Do you see that this line cuts across? So this one is not a right angle. This one is acute, and this is obtuse. So on your paper, you could write, yes, they are perpendicular for this one, number 1, and no, they are not perpendicular for number 2. Okay. We have a bunch of line segments in picture 3, and it says find which ones are perpendicular. Specifically, which line is perpendicular to line AB. Find AB, this is AB, and if you use whatever you used before, a piece of paper, an index card, a ruler, to check if it is, which one is a right angle, therefore which line is perpendicular to line AB. Well, first of all, figure it out. And then we'll go over the answer. Pause it if you need to, but CD should be what you found to be perpendicular to AB. Okay. Now, in this picture number 4, it says, look at the pairs of perpendicular line segments on the box. How many more pairs of perpendicular line segments can you find? So you won't be able to mark them and they don't have nicknames, but you can just count up how many extra perpendicular line segments there are. For example, this corner right here, those are perpendicular lines. That counts as one set of perpendicular lines. A set is 2. This is another set of perpendicular lines. Okay, and those are all I can see. And oh yeah, the one at the bottom. Okay, so I see 3. There might be more than that, but those are the ones that I see there. Okay. Now, number 5, copy the perpendicular lines onto grid paper. If you have grid paper, that would be excellent to actually practice it on that. If not, you can use something that has a sharp corner to make sure that whatever lines you're drawing are perpendicular to each other. Okay, so these ones are a little bit more clear because they're right on the lines. These ones can be a little bit trickier to tell if they are right angles or not because they are at an angle. So it would be really good to have something to double check for right angles with these kinds of lines and line segments. Okay. Then it says find pairs of perpendicular line segments on each object. take a moment to find those. And this is a fun little hands-on activity. I'm not going to be walking through this with you completely, but it tells you to look for perpendicular items in your schoolroom, and obviously we can't do that, but in your own house, you will have probably a ton of different things with perpendicular lines around me. Once again, I was pointing out the pictures here, my book, I've got a puzzle over there and some pillows. Those would all be items that have perpendicular line segments. And you can check with a piece of paper or a ruler to make sure that those corners are indeed perpendicular lines. Okay. And when in one of our live segments that we'll be doing this week, you can let me know what are some perpendicular line segments that you found around your house. The Let's Practice section, I'd like you to pause for a second and complete those on your own. This is on, oops, my whiteboard fell. Page 284 in your book. So on page 284, it says, tell whether the lines are perpendicular. Identify the perpendicular line segments in the figure. There should be one set in each figure. And then number 5, find 2 pairs of perpendicular line segments on each object. So pause the video now and then just press play again as soon as you're ready to go over the answers. Okay, you should have paused, and let's go over the answers. For number 1, yes or no, are they perpendicular? Yes. Number 2 should be a no. Number 3, which ones are perpendicular in this object? The only ones that you should have are AB and BC. Those are perpendicular to each other. Okay. Over here, oh, I gave you the wrong answer for this one because there are actually 2 sets of perpendicular lines. WZ and ZY are perpendicular, plus ZY and XY. Those are perpendicular to each other. And the objects, we've got quite a few, it looks like. AG to GF, the corner there. GF to DF, those are perpendicular. Looks like all of the other ones on sort of the outside of the shape to make it 3-dimensional. Those surfaces are not going to have perpendicular lines, so it's just AGGF and GFDF. In this little tank, I'm not sure what's happening here because there's a kite, but it looks like a fish tank at first to me. We have AG and GF, GF and DF, DF and AD, AD and AG. And those are the only ones that are perpendicular in that shape. This first cube all the way, or not cube, but the first surface of the cube that we can see right here. And it would be fun to have like a little art connection to create your own 3D object like that, which should have at first right angles, and then to add dimension to your shape, you don't want right angles for the back parts. So for example, here's a little square. This is the extent of the art that I can do, which is about a 3rd grade level. But we've got a square here. Those are not perfect right angles, but it would be great if you could make them actually perfect right angles using the corner of something. And then have your kind of slanted lines. These are not right angles, as you can see. And then connect those, and then draw a line out this way, and then up a little bit, so that none of those outside surfaces are right angles, and then you've got a little cube. Okay, that is all for 17.3. Once again, I know this is review, but We are still figuring out virtual learning, and I know you all are too. So we thought that the third grade team and I thought it would be best to do review at first. The next lesson we'll do is on parallel lines. Once again, that's also review. And we'll just do the let's practice pages. You do not have practice in your workbook to do with this, except for at the end of the book. There should be some review pages at the end of your workbook. That might be over perpendicular and parallel lines. So feel free to do those ones. But other than that, that's all for math. I will be doing the parallel lines as a separate lesson. Talk to you later.